NBC10 News starts now.
Find the defendant guilty.
Guilty on all counts. Tonight, Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer, now a convicted murderer in the death of George Floyd. An eruption of cheers across the country.
I'm so happy.
The moment the verdict was announced in a landmark case that brought racial justice and police reform into the national spotlight. You're watching NBC10 News at 11. I'm Jacqueline London.
And I'm Jim Rosenfield. 330 days after George Floyd's death sparked a global uproar, justice was served in a Minnesota courtroom tonight. Former officer Derek Chauvin convicted on all counts.
Guilty of second-degree murder, guilty of third-degree murder, and guilty of second-degree manslaughter. This after a jury of Chauvin's peers took 11 hours to decide his fate. From the trial to the reaction to the potential impact on policing. NBC10 has live team coverage tonight on all angles of this verdict. We'll begin with NBC10's Danny Freeman here in the studio with exactly how today unfolded in the courtroom and reaction from the president. Danny.
Jackie, in a speech to the nation just a few hours ago, President Biden said George Floyd's murder ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see the systemic racism in our country. But the president said Chauvin's conviction is a giant step in the march towards justice.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
Wearing not a badge, but a gray suit and a mask, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin learned his fate at the same time the country did. Guilty on all 3 counts.
Are these your verdicts? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes.
The 19-year veteran of the force showed little emotion as he was taken away in handcuffs almost a year after he knelt on George Floyd's neck and killed him.
Today, we are able to breathe again.
George Floyd's brother hoping this moment is a catalyst for change in policing in America.
I'm going to put up a fight every day because I'm not just fighting for George anymore. I'm fighting for everybody around this world.
It was a murder.
In a nationwide primetime address, President Biden and Vice President Harris called Floyd's murder a stain on our nation's soul, but said the verdict was a step towards justice.
This verdict brings us a step closer, and the fact is, we still have work to do. We still must reform the system.
The guilty verdict does not bring back George. But through the family's pain, they're finding purpose. So George's legacy will not be just about his death, but about what we must do in his memory.
Tonight, Chauvin is in a state prison outside Minneapolis. He is expected to be sentenced in about 8 weeks. He faces up to 75 years in prison. Danny Freeman, NBC10 News.
All right, Danny, and tonight, emotional reaction to the verdict across the country with peaceful crowds coming together in a collective sigh of relief. And it's the same story here at home. Let's go live now to NBC10's Aaron Baskerville, who is live outside City Hall. And Aaron, waiting for that verdict to be read, that was tense today, but then came the elation for so many people.
Yeah, a big sense of relief. People, you know, their stomach were in knots. They were biting their fingernails. They did not know what to think whatsoever. Right now, we are outside of City Hall. It's been a very quiet and peaceful night. That is the good news. Just moments ago, literally minutes ago, about 8 trucks where I'm standing right now pulled up full of National Guard members. They scooped up a couple of their members and they left here. So they came here around 5 o'clock this afternoon, and it looks like they are gone, done with their duties for now. As for the trial, folks out here are hoping this will push the conversation forward.
I really don't know what the verdict is going to be. I hope this jury does the right thing and finds this man guilty.
Anxious moments inside this West Philly store this afternoon. Workers at Rainbow stared at a cell phone nervously as the verdict came down.
Unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
Woo!
Agreed to this 20th day of April.
Once they heard the word guilty, an instant deep breath. The knots in their stomachs went away as they stared at Derek Chauvin handcuffed and led away.
Now that we have a guilty verdict, it brings some weight off your shoulders.
Outside the store, Leslie Anderson stopped us. She was emotional, talking about the verdict.
At least this one time, this life did matter. this black life did matter at this particular time. To actually have justice served for a police officer, period, it was just amazing to know that everything went well.
On the streets of West Philadelphia, people told us it was a relief to see an officer held accountable for killing an African-American man. Faith leaders want the conversation to continue.
I'm hoping we're getting to a point where people are looking beyond the color of people's skin and actually looking at a human being.
A day in history that won't soon be forgotten inside Rainbow.
You going to jail now? Excuse me? Going to jail now, buddy.
That was just a glimpse of what we experienced this afternoon. We were inside that store in Rainbow for about an hour, and I can tell you there was such concern on the folks' faces inside there. Some folks were sweating in anticipation of what would happen. They hope this is just the start of that conversation. For now, we're live outside of City Hall. Aaron Baskerville, NBC10 News.
Aaron, thank you. And as we often see, people feel the need to share their reaction. The outpouring of emotion on social media was immediate and raw. Victory would be George Floyd being alive, said inaugural poet Amanda Gorman. I'm in tears, said Ciara. Not gonna lie, was not expecting this. Justice is rolling down like a mighty stream. That from Octavia Spencer. And coming up, the lasting impact of the Chauvin trial. NBC10's Matt DeLucia takes a look at the potential future of policing and what changes we've already seen. Plus reaction from local police departments, including the Philadelphia Police Commissioner. Jackie.
Could the Derek Chauvin trial change policing as we know it? That's the question NBC10 is asking tonight as people look for long-term changes. NBC10's Matt DeLucia spoke with a former officer and got reaction from local police chiefs on the impact of this case.
Across the country and here at home, this trial shined a light on policing, and some hope the effects are long-lasting.
It's the bad police officers that make our job that much harder.
Jamison Rogers was satisfied with the verdict, having been a police officer himself for 12 years. He says the racial reckoning over George Floyd's murder has already led to changes.
Policing is like everything else in life. It's forever evolving. So we need to take a look at policing to see where we are today and how we can be better tomorrow.
Here in Philadelphia, the changes began after Floyd's death, including requiring officers to immediately report any use of force over police radio, banning certain holds, and training police to intervene with other officers so they can avoid mistakes or misconduct. Danielle Outlaw, the city's first black female police commissioner, saying in a statement tonight, "My heart goes out to George Floyd's family in their time of grief. This verdict will not bring their son back, but I hope they will find some comfort knowing that justice was indeed served." Wilmington's police chief told us after the verdict it was right and just, and what Chauvin did to George Floyd set back any advances to trust in the police.
That's not the way we do policing, and that person that was taken away in cuffs today doesn't represent who we are.
And Jamison told me that for some people the reforms may never be enough, but he does think that the conversations and steps are happening, and that should give people hope. The head of the Philly Police Union released a short statement tonight saying he believes that the justice system worked in this case. At police headquarters, I'm Matt DeLucia, NBC10 News.
And the case isn't over yet. Sentencing is scheduled in 8 weeks, and you can always get instant updates and alerts on the case with the free NBC10 app.